is our CSC 231 project. This is Leon Saqui and Skyrus, and our project is called Plan Me. We have created this project because it's very difficult for an ME student to determine the next class that they need to take, or maybe some sort of prereq that they need for another class. Just by looking at the flow chart or looking at the catalog, it can all be very confusing. So we've created Plan Me, and what Plan Me is, it basically eliminates the hassle and frustration of trying to figure out what sort of classes that you need to take. And the basic use, or how to use it in a basic sort of sense, is the user will input the name of each class into the program. It'll ask them to do that. And the program will assign a number value to each class and create like sort of a database. And here's that database right here. And we have all of the classes assigned to each number or variable. And then at the very end, using all of the classes that the user input and information that we've taken from the flowchart in terms of prereqs that need to be taken for a class to be eligible for the user to take will be all determined at the end, and then the program will spit out classes that are eligible for the user to take. So here's how it works. Let's start with the math section. First, it asks the user or tells them some instructions, tells them to input their classes within brackets. If they have not taken anything, put in 0. First, it'll ask what year are they. They will put in number 1 through 4, and then it'll ask them what quarter it is, and they will input fall, winter, and spring. And fall, winter, and spring are also assigned to numbers, 100, 200, as well. And that'll come into play way later. So here's an example of how Plan Me works. First, the program will ask the user to input what sort of math classes they have taken, and it'll be respective for each sort of section. Where in math section is math, and the physics class, it asks them to take the physics courses, but they input the math classes in, and it can be in whatever order, because the program will take whatever they put in and sort it into numerical order, and then saves that vector into another variable, because we're going to do something else with it. So after that, the program will look at all of the different classes that the user has inputted and basically determine out of those classes what's the next one that they should take. So if the user has input 0, obviously the first math class they should take is the first one, which is Math 141, and it saves it into a overall possibilities of math classes to take into a variable. If that input vector has anything other than 0, but less than 6, it will basically create a uniform vector that is of length 6, and it will appear like one of these 6 vectors here. And the program will basically match the input vector to an output vector and determine what class to take from there, at least for this section. So as a second example, if they've taken, let's say, Math 141 and 142, they'll input Math 141 and 142 into the input vector, and this is what it looks like as a vector. And if that input vector matches this one, then the program will spit out Math 143, and that's the class that they're eligible to take. Likewise with everything else, if they've taken up to the last math, which is Linear 2, Math 344, then the whole vector is filled and there are no more math classes to take. So the math possibilities vector becomes just an empty vector, and then at the end, the program will tell the user to take the classes. Same thing for the physics classes and so forth. The physics class is a little bit more complex in determining which class that the user should take first, because if they have not taken Math 141, according to the flowchart, you're not supposed to take any sort of physics class yet. So if you can't take Math 141, you can't take Physics 141, then you can't take the whole series. So This program will determine if the user has already taken 141, and if they haven't, the physics output vector to match will just be empty. And at the end, the user won't have any physics classes possible to take if they haven't even taken 141. But chances are they've probably already taken 141. So if they have, program go ahead and sees that, and then asks them, what physics classes have you taken already? So, and here it is again, same sort of thing in the math section where if they've put in a 0, first class to take is 141. If they put in anything else, it creates a uniform vector, matches it to an output vector, and tells them what's the next class to take, like physics 133 or physics 132. And same thing again, if they have all three classes, it shows that in a vector, then physics possibility vector is just empty by the very end. And everything else is pretty similar. Chemistry, same sort of thing. English classes, same thing. IME classes, Bio, BMed, E classes. For the IME section, it is a little bit different.
IME is a little bit different because you can go in any order. In say the physics section, you have to go physics 141, 142, or 141, 132, 133. There's a specified order in the flowchart, and each subsequent physics class is a prereq of the physics class beforehand. But with IME classes, you can take any of them at any time. So we had to do this a little differently with a lot of different iterations of this code to take into account all the different combinations of IME that you could have taken. And thankfully, there are only 3 of them, so we didn't have to do too many.
It wasn't that hard. Bio and BMed, it's just easy. There's only 2 classes you have to take. Either you haven't taken or not. The E classes are the same as the physics classes, where you can't really start the series unless you've taken a certain math or a certain physics. But once you have, the program will see it and then ask what E classes you've taken. Same with the CSC class. You have to have taken math, physics class. The mate classes, same as everything else. This is where the code gets a little bit more complex because the previous sections, all of the classes were dependent on each other, kind of in like a linear fashion. For example, in the math classes, it's literally just a straight line where you take 141, and then you take 142, then after that take 143, then you take Calc 4 or Linear 1. That was the only complexity. Then after that, you go to Linear 2 and Calc 4, or Linear 3, and it's just a straight line. With the major classes for a mechanical engineer, it kind of is a very complex sort of way to go about the flowchart, where you can take a lot of these classes in any order that you want. For example, once you take dynamics, ME212, you will have 3 choices of classes to take, and then for one of those 3 classes, I think it's ME341 or something. But regardless, there are many classes like after 212 that have multiple requirements before that, and then to make it even more complex, after that there are multiple branches of classes that you can take after that class. If you go ME212 goes to 3 classes, then each of those classes have 2 possibilities after that, for example. So the ME classes were a little bit difficult to comprehend for us, so we did it in sort of a different way. However, we were able to accomplish the orientation classes for ME in the same manner that we did the math classes, as they progress in sort of a linear fashion as well, where it's M128 and then 129 and 130 and 251. After that, it gets a little bit less linear. And we'll skip this section just for now. But it gets a little bit less linear. So after that, it starts with statics, ME to 11. And that has prereqs too, so it operates the same as the physics section. can't take statics and everything else unless you've taken physics 141 and math 241. And then once you take statics, then you can take dynamics and or CE 204. And after those classes, it gets strange. So, flowchart.
Oh, yeah. So right over here, we can pull up the flowchart, ME Cal Poly flowchart. And just looking at this is how we determined most of these classes that we had to input. There are different concentrations, there's a lot you can look at, but for the most part, we just stuck with mechanical engineering and concentration not yet declared. Yes. Okay, come on. Okay, now I don't really know what's happening. But point is, we got all our information from this flowchart, and we referred to this time and time again throughout our programming in order to get all of our information to be correct.
Right. So, as I was saying, you can't start the statics and everything else unless you accomplish anything else. But after statics and going into junior year, it gets very complex where let's say you're taking ME 302, and then from there, you can go into 303, but to get into 302, there's a lot of different prereqs. You have to take dynamics or Chem 128, and also physics 132. If you take a class like ME 341, there's a few branches, I think, where you can go into after that, where if you take this, then you can go into 350 or 347, or something else. Oh, or ME 420. But then these classes, that's not the only prereq. ME 341 is not the only prereq for ME 350. So because of that sort of unlinear fashion, there's multiple prereqs for a class, we are unable to do the sort of uniform vector matching that we were doing for physics in the math section. So what we had to do is create an if-else statement for each class. Let's look at a more complex class that we can demonstrate easier. Let's take ME 326, for example. This first statement checks if the user has not taken ME 326 yet. And we had to do that because at the very end, if we didn't have these, it would basically duplicate the class and tell the user that they need to take it even though they have entered it already. So we use the size and intercept commands and the matching variable for the course in question, and basically use these commands to search if there is indeed
this particular class
in
the classes that have been taken.
In the input vector. So all of these just check if the class in question is actually in there. And if it's not there, then the program will say, okay, well, this person needs to take the class in question. So back to our example, ME 326, if the user is not taking it, so if it's not there, then the program will know, okay, well, I need to ask them if they've taken all the prereqs, which is math, some math, CSC 231, and another ME class, which is dynamics. And if they have satisfied all of the prereqs, which are these classes, then they will be able to take, the program will recommend them that they should take this class. And then each class gets put into a possibility vector, where at the very end, the program will compile it all and tell the user all the different ME classes that possible that they could take. And this occurs for each and every class that is on the ME flowchart. For example, another one would be ME 328. The program asks if
318.
Or 318, if they have taken it. If not, then it checks to see if they have done the math, and if they have done the ME course, which is ME 326. And if so, then it'll go ahead and put in the class as a recommendation and put it into the possibility spectrum, which will be put at the end. And it does this for each and every class. Same with the CE classes, where it has the same sort of complex prereq and what else to take after it, where you can only take CE 204 if you've taken statics, and if you've not taken it already, so that's what the program is asking. It goes on. If you've taken it, if CE 204 has taken it, it'll tell the user that, oh, you need to take CE 207, and so forth. Now, how the program tells the user what classes they need to take, it just takes all of the compiled vectors and displays them. So in the very beginning, we were putting math 141 and math 142 into a variable called math to take. And here it will display that variable saying like, oh, well, here's what you need to take for math. Same with physics, same with chem, same with bio, same with English. And those were all simple because it's usually just one or two classes that you need to take. The ME class vector, however, it's an actual vector with a bunch of elements. So it'll usually display, like if you took statics and dynamics, then it'll display 4 different classes possible that you can take from there. Where it's like CU204 and ME302 and other ones if you've taken all, if you've satisfied the prereqs for them. Lastly, we have covered concentration classes in a sense, where if you are indeed in your 3rd year and in your 3rd quarter, or in your 4th year, then the program will recommend or remind you that, hey, you should be thinking about your technical electives, your concentration classes, and just to think about that. And just as a little end note, if you don't have enough classes that you want to take, then take a GE if you haven't already. And then it'll thank the user for using PlanMe, and that is now.
Great. So now we can move on to how the user will use this program in particular. And obviously it looks a lot different for them than it does for the programmer. So I'm going to scroll down to our test input section just so I have some easy inputs to put in for us as we use our software. So first of all, we just run it and it pops up this nice little intro, what we want to show them and how you're supposed to format your input. So this is very clear to the user how it should be inputted so that there aren't any errors later on. And obviously if you haven't taken a class, then you just input 0. So I'll start off doing it for myself. So I'm a 2nd year and it's currently spring quarter. So I've taken all of the math classes, so I'm going to put in all of them. I've taken all the physics classes, I can put in all of them. Obviously, the user would have to type these in themselves because they wouldn't be able to see the code normally if this was a real app or online service. And then I've taken all the chem classes, and you just keep going like this. Now for English, I've only taken 2 of the classes. I've only taken English 134 and English 149. So this should output that I can take either Comms 101 or Comms 102 when it gets to the end product. IME, I've only taken IME 141. It should output that I can take 142 or 143. I've taken both Bio BMed classes, so I put Bio 13, and BMed 213. EE classes, so I've taken none of the EE classes, so I put 0. I've taken CSC 231, obviously. I've taken both MATE classes, so I can put both of them in. MATE 215. Okay, so now ME classes is where it gets kind of complicated and very specific to the user. This is the longest vector that they have to input by far. We have a few examples here that we use to test it to work out all the kinks in our code. And for example, this is mine. So I've taken the intro classes, I've taken statics and dynamics. I've gotten credit for 236, and I'm currently in 234. So this all works out very nicely in its own little vector. And I just input that. And then finally, I've only taken C204. So after you've input everything, you hit enter, up pops an entire list of classes that you're eligible for the very next quarter. So I've taken all the math classes, so nothing pops up. And the same goes for physics, chemistry, and the bio BMed sections. as I said before, since I only took those other 2 English classes, it's now showing me that all I have left to take is Comms 101 or Comms 102, as either of them would satisfy that requirement. Same with these 2 are empty. Then the very first EE class pops up, and the next CE class is 207. And there you go, IME 142 or 143. And then finally, with the ME classes, which, as we know, is the most complex section, it gives me ME 341, 326, and 302 as the next ones I need to take, which, as we know, are, let's see, so Thermo 1, 341, Fluids 1, and then Intermediate Dynamics, which all, as you can see, fall into the same very first quarter of junior year, which is what I'll be entering next quarter, fall of junior year. So everything is working very well, and that's one of the simpler ones you can do. And you can also do someone who's in their 4th year who's taken everything, except for maybe a couple of the ME classes that are maybe later on, like 420 and 318 and 350, that have lots and lots of prereqs because you have to have taken pretty much everything beforehand in order to get into that class at all. So we have examples of those, and we inputted those, and if all goes well, then most of these sections come up pretty much all empty, and the only things that show up left are ME classes and the message of be sure to choose technical electives. So I can show that where, let's see, it's a lot of code. Okay, so if I ran this again, then I could say I'm a 4th year and it's a winter quarter. So if I've taken, we have some little shortcuts here that I will use now, but the user would be inputting, obviously, brackets of everything for everything, every quarter that they're inputting in every type of class. So I'm going to go ahead and use a shortcut now. 7 is 3. So I'm just assuming that I've taken, all of the basic classes already. There's 3. I need 3. For bio, is it bio 2? You do one for that? I don't know. I'll just input it just in case. Bio 213 and BMed 213. EE4, CSC 1, need 2. Okay, so then here is where we would input our nice long vector here. Let's say we use, this one's the long one, so we'll use this one. Oh, there. Okay, I can do this. Here we go. So this is what I would input for math or for the ME classes. As you can see, it goes all the way up to 328 and 350. So the only things I should be displaying are, let's see, 420, 422, and 329. Yes, here, 329. And all the other sections should be empty because we've completed all of them. Okay, I hit enter, and I've taken all the classes for C. Now I hit enter, and as you can see, every single section is empty except for the ME classes. It's just those final 3. And then also, because you're in your 4th year, be sure to choose technical electives for your concentration. And really, since you're in your final year, there's only a few classes left that you have to take. You can keep track of that and choose the electives that are appropriate for your concentration. Okay, so that's pretty much that. And I mean, yeah, clearly the way you format your input is shown right at the very beginning, so there's not very much confusion for that. We even said when you're entering the quarter, it's all caps, and if anything doesn't work, then it'll just show an error message. And really, the only things that wouldn't work is if you didn't do this or if you didn't do this, and that's all that could really go wrong, because we've accounted for every other error in our code already. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything. We hope that you like our code and our program. We think it's very useful. And actually, I'm sure I'll be using it for next year. Yeah, so definitely enjoy. And if you put it to use, we very much appreciate it. And we love this class. So hopefully it'll come in handy in the future. So
thank you for watching.
Cool. Signing off.